been recognized by a retired federal judge and understand that this is a big deal. Just because you say you're going to do it right, that's really not good enough. You really need to allow the citizens to look at every phase of this. That's the thing that shocked me the most.
And of course, what happens when you don't allow somebody to speak during the meeting is that those comments then do not make the meeting minutes.
Right.
As part of the discussion. And then maybe, 2 years down the road, when somebody sues and it's an extra $3 million to correct the problem.
Exactly.
Well, it's not my fault.
It's
the contractor's fault.
You won't know because the citizen
Right.
wasn't allowed to bring it up at a meeting, so you'll never know who failed to
The record's not
fulfill the federal law
adequately.
Well, because of all this, ladies and gentlemen, and the urging, it just still didn't look like it was allowing the kind of input that myself and many others felt. There was a trial held.
There was a lawsuit.
There was a
against
lawsuit
the park board.
Against the park board, and I guess, well, Deborah, you were there. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, the lawsuit was represented by local attorney Sharon Barnett, and they went in and they stated their case, and what she presented to the judge was a long list of prior case law where other judges had ruled in the past that the public is required to be allowed entry to a meeting, but that entry also includes that they would be allowed to participate and provide input.
Right.
And she got a bit of a lecture from the bench on the gist of which was that sounded like legislation from the bench. That was my take on it. And what ended up happening was that the park board attorney stated their case, and he kind of sat down, and we didn't really hear much from him for the remainder of the hearing, because at some point Judge Bell really was arguing their case for them.
Took the role as on arguing the park board's case.
He was almost defending the Maritime Park Board, and he asked her for a whole array of evidence and prior information, and she had all the information. She had all the information at her fingertips. She gave it to him. She told him that Florida state law requires a judge to interpret sunshine law from the broadest possible perspective,
right.
which is what had happened on these previous cases, which is why this had ended up this way.
Of which there are many dozens and dozens of cases where previous court cases had said, yes, the citizen should have input.
And she had all the information. It was there. There was nothing that she was stumped on. And finally, he just drew it to a close and said, send me this extra stuff. And she did, and he ruled against him.
Now, I think for our fellow citizens that are watching this, and anybody that you talk to, anybody that I've talked to, any way, shape, or form, I have not found one citizen that thinks that is the proper ruling coming from the court. They all see the millions of dollars that are on the table that will be brought forward because it is taxpayer money. The taxpayers are going to be obligated for this money.
Right.
And hey, if the law needs to be tweaked, the law needs to be tweaked. I don't believe it does need to be tweaked. I think it's plain and simple. You're spending taxpayer money. All right, to start out with, are you going to make any friends? Are you going to have a good product in the end if you thumb your nose at the very taxpayers that are going to pay for this thing? And honest to goodness, I see the project falling apart as we speak. There's issues in funding, there's issues in interest rate, unbelievable, ridiculous contract that they're trying to push through there. But look, the bottom line in all of this is we now know that it is going to be appealed.
Right.
It will go to.
That's my understanding.
Right. It'll be another set of judges that'll
Right.
get a chance to look.
It'll
at
be a set of judges outside of West Florida,
And,
which is probably necessary for anything related to the Sunshine Law.
You know, I've certainly already sent my email to the First Amendment Foundation and expressed to them that freedom of speech and public rights is on the verge of death, and I would hope that they would take a little more active role
Well,
in it.
and I'll say this, above and beyond the final outcome, the final ruling on this, and whether you think that the judge was right or wrong, ultimately I think what's disturbing is that the opposition has gone after the lawyer, Ms. Barnett, and
Ask for sanctions,
they're looking for sanctions.
which is money.
Right. They're looking for a payment. Basically, in my humble opinion, this looks like a punishment, retaliation,
Right.
for filing a lawsuit that, you know, these people have every right to file.
Right. And look, ladies and gentlemen, this is the important part of democracy. Okay, I want you to slide forward in your chair and listen to me here now. A lawyer with two citizens in good faith believed that this park board, with mounds of evidence in front of them, believed that this park board was not properly carrying out the law.
Well, and with an enormous amount of case law, prior
Right.
rulings behind it.
They simply went into the court system to say, we think this needs to be looked at, and we believe that the park board is acting improperly. And the defense, the first motion that the defense made in this case was to file sanctions against the attorney who brought this forward. Now let me tell you why this has a chilling effect on democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, you can be as right as you want to be. Okay? The minute you file that lawsuit, if the courts allow your opposition to immediately go after you, and look, they can turn in a piece of paper to the court that says during this trial we spent $30,000.
Right.
That's our legal cost.
Right.
And if you happen to lose your case, which, hey, sometimes you win and lose, but if you happen to lose your case, you are personally, you, the lawyer, and you are personally going to be told, write your check, here's the deadline for you to have your check in. If not, the courts are going to start going after your assets.
Right.
Okay? And I'm going to get on my soapbox just a little while longer here, Deborah. Justice is supposed to be blind, ladies and gentlemen. Justice is supposed to look at either side. And when you have this portion of the program, where in many cases the opposition immediately files to be punitive towards an attorney who dare bring a case before the courts,
Or towards the filers themselves.
or to the filers, you have a chilling effect on democracy. Okay? Look, I've got a couple dollars saved up, and this person's got a couple dollars saved up. But I can tell you, I know personally a citizen that wrote a check for $25,000 who thought he was doing the right thing. So don't think it can't happen to you, ladies and gentlemen. And it is a chilling effect on democracy.
And it's not like these people are looking for money. It's not like they're suing McDonald's for $1 million because
Right.
the coffee burned them. They're not asking for any money. They're asking for the government to run the way that the law says it's supposed to run.
Right. And Sharon Barnett and the citizens that filed that case, they didn't ask for money. They didn't ask for damages. None of that. All they asked was, we believe that they should allow citizen participation, and we want you to rule on it. And in the meantime, they're going to get stomped to death by the judicial over this. Okay. And I think it's wrong. You need to know about it. If you have an opportunity, if you know a lawyer friend, if you have an opportunity to speak with a judge or write a letter to the governor, legislatively that needs to be changed today, ladies and gentlemen. Now,